The candlelight flickered across crystal glasses as Victoria adjusted the silk scarf draped over her 7-month baby bump. She watched Marcus across the table at Milano's, the upscale Italian restaurant where they'd celebrated every milestone for the past 6 years. Tonight marked their 6th wedding anniversary, but something felt off. Marcus kept glancing toward the entrance, his jaw tight, his fingers drumming against the white tablecloth. Victoria had spent weeks planning this evening new emerald dress, reservations at their favorite spot, a surprise gift tucked in her purse. She wanted tonight to feel special, to remind them both of why they'd fallen in love. "You've barely touched your food," Victoria said softly, reaching for his hand. "Is everything all right with the Henderson contract?" "Fine. Everything's fine." Marcus pulled his hand away to check his phone for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. "Just work stress." Victoria tried to ignore the knot forming in her stomach. Marcus had been distant for months, late nights at the office, weekend business trips, distracted conversations. She blamed it on his advertising firm's expansion, on the stress of preparing for their first child. She'd convinced herself that once the baby arrived, they'd reconnect. "I have something for you," Victoria said, desperate to salvage the evening. She slid a small box across the table. "I know we said no gifts, but I saw this and thought of you." Before Marcus could respond, the restaurant door swung open. A woman walked in wearing a crimson dress that turned every head in the room. She was tall, confident, with platinum hair swept into a high ponytail. Victoria recognized her immediately. Cassandra Monroe, Marcus's executive assistant. "What is she doing here?" Victoria whispered, confused. Cassandra didn't pause. She walked straight to their table, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Other diners stopped eating, sensing something dramatic about to unfold. Victoria expected Cassandra to apologize for the interruption, to deliver some urgent work message. Instead, Cassandra leaned down and kissed Marcus full on the mouth. The kiss lasted 5 seconds. 10. 15. Long enough for Victoria's brain to short-circuit, for her hands to instinctively cover her pregnant belly, for the entire restaurant to fall silent. When Cassandra finally pulled back, she smiled down at Victoria with something between pity and triumph. "Hello, Victoria. I'm Cassandra, but I guess you already knew that." Her voice carried across the quiet room. "What you didn't know is that I've been Marcus's girlfriend for the past 18 months. Victoria's vision blurred. 18 months. The baby kicked hard inside her, as if protesting the shock waves rippling through her body. She looked at Marcus, waiting for him to deny it, to explain, to do something. But he just sat there, frozen, his face pale. "I know this is hard to hear," Cassandra continued, sitting down in the empty chair at their table as if she belonged there. "But I'm done being the secret. Marcus keeps promising he'll tell you about us, but he never does. So I'm doing it for him, Marcus." Victoria's voice barely worked. "Tell me this isn't happening. Tell me she's lying." Marcus finally met her eyes, and in that moment, Victoria saw the truth. No surprise, no shock, no denial. Just resignation and something that looked almost like relief. "I was going to tell you," Marcus said quietly. "I just didn't know how." "How?" Victoria's voice rose. "You were going to tell me on our anniversary? While I'm 7 months pregnant with your child. This was your plan?" "Actually, this wasn't his plan. This was mine." Cassandra crossed her legs, making herself comfortable. "I'm tired of hiding, tired of being the woman he sneaks around to see. He needs to make a choice, and apparently, he needs help making it." Victoria felt the room spinning around her. Other diners whispered and stared. Their anniversary celebration transformed into a public spectacle. The elegant atmosphere that had felt so romantic minutes ago now felt suffocating. "You need to leave," Victoria said to Cassandra, fighting to keep her voice steady. Whatever you think you have with my husband, this conversation needs to happen privately. But that's just it, Cassandra replied, examining her manicured nails. He's not really your husband anymore, is he? Not in any meaningful way. When was the last time he chose to spend an evening with you instead of making excuses to be with me? Victoria's chest tightened. The late nights. The business trips to conferences that never seemed to exist when she looked them up online. The Valentine's Day weekend when Marcus claimed he had to fly to Chicago for an emergency client meeting. Had all of it been lies? Marcus, say something, Victoria demanded. Tell her she's wrong about us. Marcus stared at his untouched plate of pasta. Cassandra shouldn't have done this. Not like this. But she's right about one thing we need to talk. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you for weeks. Tell me what? That you've been cheating on me while I've been carrying your child? Victoria's voice cracked. That our entire marriage has been a lie. See how dramatic she gets? Cassandra said to Marcus. This is exactly what I've been telling you. She makes everything into a crisis. You deserve someone who understands you, who doesn't make life so exhausting. A sharp pain shot through Victoria's abdomen. She gasped, doubling over. The baby. Something felt wrong. Victoria? For the first time that evening, Marcus showed genuine concern. Another pain, stronger this time. Victoria felt moisture between her legs and knew immediately this wasn't normal. It was too early. The baby wasn't due for another 9 weeks. Something's wrong, Victoria managed through gritted teeth. The baby. A waiter rushed over. Should I call for help? Yes, Victoria gasped. Please. An ambulance. She looked at Marcus, expecting him to jump up, to hold her hand, to be the husband he promised to be when they'd stood at an altar 6 years ago. But he remained seated, Cassandra's hand resting possessively on his arm. Marcus, I need you, Victoria said, tears streaming down her face. Right now, please. Cassandra tugged on his sleeve. She's being dramatic to manipulate you. Can't you see that? She's trying to make you feel guilty so you'll stay with her. Another contraction ripped through Victoria, this one so intense she cried out. This wasn't manipulation. This was terrifying and real, and her baby was in serious danger. Sir, your wife needs to get to the hospital, the waiter said urgently to Marcus. The ambulance is on its way, but Marcus stood up. But instead of moving toward Victoria, he stepped back toward the exit. I can't do this right now. I just can't. Can't do what? Victoria couldn't believe what she was hearing. Be a husband? Be a father? Which part is too difficult for you? This whole situation is too much, Marcus said, pulling out his wallet. He threw several $100 bills on the table. Cassandra, we should go. Victoria watched in horror as Marcus turned toward the door. He was leaving. His pregnant wife was having a medical emergency, possibly losing their baby, and he was walking away with his mistress. Marcus! Victoria screamed his name, but he didn't turn back. She watched through her tears as he and Cassandra walked out of Milano's together, leaving her alone in a room full of strangers. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. A woman from a nearby table knelt beside Victoria, taking her hand. Help is coming, sweetheart. Just breathe. You're going to be okay. But Victoria couldn't breathe. Her husband had just chosen his mistress over his wife and unborn child. In front of dozens of witnesses, on their anniversary, he'd made his choice crystal clear. And as another contraction hit, as fear for her baby overwhelmed everything else, Victoria realized her marriage was over. The restaurant manager brought blankets. Other diners surrounded her with comfort and kindness strangers, showing more compassion in 5 minutes than her own husband had shown all evening. Someone held her hand. Someone else brought water. These people who didn't know her cared more about her well-being than the man, She'd married. Paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. As they carefully helped Victoria onto it, she placed one hand on her belly and made a silent promise to the baby inside. They would survive this. They would be okay. And Marcus would regret this night for the rest of his life. But in that moment, scared and alone and betrayed in the worst possible way, Victoria didn't know if she believed her own promise. All she knew was that everything had changed in the span of one devastating kiss. Victoria woke to steady beeping machines beside her hospital bed. Her hand immediately went to her belly. The baby kicked, and Victoria nearly sobbed with relief. "She's stable," a familiar voice said from the shadows. Elena, Victoria's older sister, leaned forward into the light. Her normally composed face was puffy from crying. "Both of you are stable. The doctors stopped the premature labor." "How long have I been here?" 8 hours. They gave you medication to help you rest." Elena squeezed Victoria's hand. "The restaurant manager found your phone and called me." "Vic, what happened?" "They said you collapsed during dinner with Marcus." The memories flooded back like poison. The kiss. Cassandra. Marcus walking away while she needed him most. 80 months of lies. "He left me," Victoria whispered. "I was having contractions, and he just walked out with her." Elena's expression went from concern to fury. "With who?" Victoria explained everything. Cassandra's public confession. Marcus's non-denial. His choice to leave while his wife was in medical distress. Each word felt like reliving the nightmare. "I'm going to destroy him," Elena said through clenched teeth. "Who is this woman?" "His executive assistant." "She said they've been together for 18 months. Victoria's voice broke. "Elena, 18 months. That means it started long before I got pregnant. Every late night, every business trip, all lies." A nurse entered to check Victoria's vitals. "Good, you're awake. How are you feeling physically?" "Like my life is falling apart," Victoria said flatly. "I'm in any pain or contractions," the nurse said gently. "But I understand. We see situations like this more often than you'd think. Stress during pregnancy can be dangerous." After the nurse left, Elena pulled out her phone. "Marcus has called me 9 times in the past hour. Should I answer?" "What does he want?" "Probably to make sure you're not dead so he doesn't have to feel guilty." Elena's voice was bitter. "I don't care what he wants. He made his choice." But Victoria was suddenly wide awake, her mind racing. "Elena, if they've been together for 18 months, what else has he been lying about?" "Our finances, our plans for the baby, everything I thought I knew." "Don't think about that now. Focus on staying calm for the baby." "I have to think about it. I have a daughter coming in 9 weeks. I need to know what I'm dealing with." Victoria tried to sit up, and Elena helped adjust the pillows. "Hand me my purse." "My phone should be in there." Elena hesitated. "Maybe wait until tomorrow when you're stronger. Please." Reluctantly, Elena retrieved the purse and handed it over. Victoria pulled out her phone. 23 missed calls from Marcus. 15 text messages. She ignored all of them and opened her banking app instead. The joint checking account showed $300. Just 300 when there should have been thousands. Her hands trembled as she checked their joint savings. $500 remained of the $20,000 they'd had last month. "Elena." Victoria's voice was barely audible. "He took the money. Almost all of it." Elena looked at the screen and swore colorfully. "That bastard. When? How did you not notice?" "I haven't been checking. I've been so focused on preparing for the baby, and Marcus always said he was handling our finances." Victoria scrolled through transaction history. Large transfers, all within the past 3 weeks. All moved to an account she didn't recognize. He's been planning this. A text notification appeared from an unknown number. Victoria opened it without thinking. The message contained a photo of Marcus and Cassandra in Victoria's own living room. Cassandra wore Victoria's bathrobe. The timestamp showed 3 weeks ago, a morning when Marcus had told Victoria to sleep in because he had early meetings. "He brought her to our house," Victoria said, showing Elena the phone. "While I was pregnant, he brought his mistress into our home." More texts came through rapid fire. Screenshots of bank statements showing large deposits into Cassandra's accounts. Photos of Marcus and Cassandra at hotels and restaurants. A paper trail of deception going back over a year. The final message read, "Thought you should know the truth. He's been using both of you. Check the house deed. He added her name to it last month. Get a lawyer. Fast. A friend. Who's sending these?" Elena asked. "I don't know, but they're helping." Victoria's shock was giving way to cold determination. "The house. He put her name on our house." 2 days after leaving the hospital, Victoria sat in her living room with her laptop, Elena beside her for support. The house felt different, now violated. Knowing Cassandra had been here, in her space, wearing her things, made Victoria's skin crawl. "I need to see everything," Victoria said. "Every account, every asset, every lie." She logged into their mortgage account. Sure enough, a deed modification had been filed 3 weeks ago, adding Cassandra Monroe as a co-owner. Marcus had forged Victoria's signature on the paperwork. "That's fraud," Elena said. "Actual criminal fraud." Victoria's phone buzzed with another message from the mysterious sender. This time, it was a document, a second mortgage on the house for $80,000, taken out 6 months ago. Money Victoria had never seen. "Cassandra's been living very well on your money. I'm sorry you're finding out this way, but you deserve to know." Who is this person? Victoria wondered aloud. How do they have access to all this information? Does it matter? They're helping you see the truth. Victoria thought about the past 18 months, searching for signs she'd missed. Marcus had been distant, yes. He'd stopped being intimate with her months before she got pregnant. He'd insisted she quit her marketing job to focus on preparing to be a mother. He'd taken complete control of their finances, claiming he was better with numbers. Every decision now looked like a trap. "I need a lawyer," Victoria said, "and a private investigator. I need to know exactly what he's done and how to protect myself and the baby." "I know someone," Elena said, pulling out her phone. "Catherine Ross. She's a shark. She'd destroy him." While Elena made calls, Victoria's phone rang. Marcus. She hesitated, then answered on speaker. "Victoria, thank God. We need to talk." "Now you want to talk?" "After you left me in a restaurant while I was having contractions." I panicked. I didn't know what to do. Cassandra was upset. "You were upset. I made a terrible mistake." Marcus's voice sounded strained. "But I'm still your husband. We need to figure this out." "Figure what out?" "How to divide up the money you stole. How to share the house you illegally put your mistress's name on." Victoria's voice was ice. "I know everything, Marcus. The money transfers, the second mortgage, all of it." Silence on the other end. "Who told you?" Marcus finally asked. "Does it matter? The point is, you've been systematically stealing from me while pretending to be a devoted husband. It's not stealing. It's our money. I was just moving it around for investment purposes." "Into Cassandra's accounts?" "That's an interesting investment strategy." "Victoria, please. I know I messed up with the affair, but the financial stuff is complicated. If you just let me explain." "You left me." Victoria cut him off. "I was possibly losing our baby, and you walked out with your mistress. That's not something you explain away. That's who you really are. I want to see my daughter when she's born. I have rights. You gave up your rights when you abandoned us. A judge is going to hear about what you did, and then we'll see what rights you have." Victoria's hand rested protectively on her belly. "Don't call me again. All communication goes through my lawyer." She hung up before Marcus could respond. Elena smiled grimly. "That's my sister. Now let's finish gathering evidence and bury him." Over the next week, Victoria threw herself into documentation. The mysterious messenger continued sending information, more photos, more bank statements, more proof of Marcus's deception. Victoria learned that Cassandra had a history. She'd been married twice before, both marriages ending quickly with accusations of financial impropriety from her ex-husbands. The private investigator Elena hired, a retired detective named Frank Morrison, confirmed everything. "Your husband's mistress is a professional," Frank explained during their meeting. "She targets successful men, gets access to their finances, and bleeds them dry. Marcus isn't her first victim, but he chose to help her steal from me," Victoria said. "That makes him just as guilty." "Absolutely. And we have evidence of fraud, forgery, and embezzlement. Combined with his abandonment during your medical emergency, you're going to win big in divorce court." Victoria also discovered something else, something Marcus didn't know about. Her late grandmother had established a trust fund for her, set to mature on Victoria's 30th birthday. Victoria had turned 36 months ago, but had completely forgotten about the trust in the chaos of preparing for the baby. She contacted her grandmother's attorney, an elderly man named Gerald Patton, who'd been managing the trust for decades. "Miss Victoria," Gerald said warmly when they met, "I've been hoping to hear from you. Your grandmother's trust matured on your 30th birthday. You now have access to $2.8 million, plus a commercial property downtown that generates substantial rental income." Victoria nearly fell out of her chair. $2.8 million? Your grandmother was a brilliant investor. She wanted to make sure you always had financial independence. Gerald handed her a folder. "The property houses 6 businesses, all paying market rate rent. You're looking at about $18,000 monthly income, completely separate from any marital assets." For the first time since that awful anniversary dinner, Victoria felt something other than fear and betrayal. She felt powerful. She had resources Marcus didn't know about. She had leverage. "Does my husband know about this?" Victoria asked. "I have no record of ever discussing it with anyone except you." "Did you tell him?" "I mentioned something about a small trust fund years ago, but I'd forgotten the details myself. I had no idea it was this much." Gerald smiled. "Then I'd suggest keeping it that way until your divorce is finalized. This trust is completely protected from marital asset claims." Victoria left Gerald's office feeling transformed. She wasn't trapped. She wasn't helpless. She had the means to fight back and build a new life for herself and her daughter. Marcus thought he'd left her with nothing. He was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. The divorce attorney, Catherine Ross, was everything Elena had promised: sharp, strategic, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. She reviewed Victoria's evidence with growing satisfaction. "This is one of the strongest cases I've seen," Catherine said during their consultation. "We have documentation of adultery, financial fraud, forgery, and abandonment during a medical emergency. Plus, with your grandmother's trust protected as a premarital asset, you're in an excellent position." "I want full custody of my daughter," Victoria said firmly. "I want the house, even though he added Cassandra to the deed. I want alimony for giving up my career at his insistence. And I want him to pay my legal fees." "We can get all of that," Catherine assured her. "But you need to prepare yourself. When Marcus finds out about your trust, he's going to fight dirty. He'll make accusations, try to paint you as vindictive. Are you ready for that?" "I've been through worse," Victoria replied, thinking of that night at Milano's. "I can handle whatever he throws at me." Catherine filed the divorce petition with all of Victoria's demands clearly stated. Within 48 hours, Marcus's attorney responded with a counterpetition. claiming Victoria had concealed assets and was an unfit mother. Unfit? Victoria read the documents in disbelief. I'm the one who stayed faithful. I'm the one who didn't steal money. I'm the one who didn't abandon my spouse during a medical crisis. It's desperation, Catherine explained. He knows he's in trouble. He's trying to create leverage however he can. Victoria also learned that Marcus's advertising firm had discovered the financial irregularities. His partners had frozen his access to company accounts and were conducting a full audit. Criminal charges for embezzlement were likely coming soon. Meanwhile, Victoria was building something new. Using funds from her trust, she rented office space and started her own marketing consultancy, Victoria Sterling Solutions. She reached out to old contacts from before she'd quit her job, and several immediately wanted to work with her. I heard what Marcus did, one former colleague said during a lunch meeting. Everyone in the industry knows. And honestly, we all liked working with you better anyway. He took credit for a lot of your ideas. Victoria hired 2 assistants and dove into client work. The challenge energized her. After years of staying home, of letting her skills atrophy, she'd forgotten how much she loved the creative strategy of marketing. Her mysterious benefactor, the unknown messenger, revealed themselves during this time. A woman named Patricia Vaughn called Victoria's office and asked to meet. Patricia turned out to be Cassandra's former business partner. Cassandra destroyed our PR firm 2 years ago. Patricia explained when they met for coffee. She stole clients, embezzled money, and disappeared. I've been waiting for her to slip up again so I could gather evidence. So you've been watching her, Victoria realized. You sent me all those messages. I sent you the truth. Cassandra's a predator. She's done this before, targeted successful men in business, seduced them, gotten access to their finances, then moved on to the next victim. Patricia pulled out more documents. These are her previous divorces, restraining orders, accusations from former employers. Your husband isn't special. He's just the latest mark. Why help me? Because I want to see her finally face consequences. And because I've been where you are, betrayed by someone I trusted. You deserve better. Patricia's information proved invaluable. Victoria's legal team used it to demonstrate that Marcus had been deliberately targeted by a known con artist. Though that didn't absolve him of his choices. As Victoria's business grew and her legal case strengthened, she felt herself transforming. The woman who'd sat crying in that restaurant was gone. In her place was someone harder, smarter, and absolutely determined to protect her daughter's future. Elena moved into Victoria's guest room to help as the pregnancy progressed. Frank Morrison continued surveillance on Marcus and Cassandra, documenting their every move. Catherine prepared for court with military precision. You're glowing, Elena observed one evening as they assembled furniture for the nursery. Despite everything, you seem happier than I've seen you in years. I feel like myself again, Victoria admitted. I forgot what it was like to use my brain for work I love, to build something that's mine. Being Marcus's wife became my whole identity. Now I'm remembering who I was before him. The baby kicked hard, as if in agreement. She's going to be so proud of you, Elena said, rubbing Victoria's belly. When she's old enough to understand, she'll know her mother fought for their future and won. 2 weeks before her due date, Victoria received notice of their court date. Marcus had tried to settle out of court, offering minimal concessions. Catherine had rejected every proposal. We're going to trial, Catherine said, and we're going to win everything. The night before court, Victoria stood in her new nursery, one hand on her pregnant belly. Tomorrow she'd face Marcus in front of a judge. Tomorrow she'd fight for her daughter's future. Tomorrow she'd show the world that being betrayed didn't make her a victim. It made her a survivor. We're going to be okay, Victoria whispered to the baby. Better than okay. We're going to build an amazing life. Your father made his choices. Now I'm making mine. For the first time since that devastating anniversary dinner, Victoria felt genuinely hopeful. Not because the pain was gone, but because she'd proven to herself that she was strong enough to survive it. The courtroom felt cold and impersonal, all dark wood and fluorescent lighting. Victoria sat next to Catherine, wearing a professional navy dress that accommodated her 9-month pregnant belly. Across the aisle, Marcus sat with his attorney, refusing to make eye contact. Judge Harrison, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, reviewed the case files before calling court to order. Catherine stood to present Victoria's case, methodically laying out evidence: Marcus's affair with Cassandra, the systematic theft of marital funds, the fraudulent deed modification, his abandonment during Victoria's medical emergency. Your Honor, this is textbook marital misconduct, Catherine stated. Mr. Sterling engaged in a prolonged affair with his employee, defrauded his wife financially, and abandoned her while she was 7 months pregnant and experiencing premature labor. Mrs. Sterling seeks full primary custody, the marital home, spousal support, and attorney fees. Marcus's attorney, a slick-looking man named Robert Chun, stood to counter. Your Honor, my client admits to an affair, which was regrettable. However, Mrs. Sterling is not the innocent party she claims to be. She concealed significant assets throughout their marriage, specifically a multi-million-dollar trust fund and commercial property. This suggests premeditation and financial deception. Judge Harrison looked at Victoria. Mrs. Sterling, did you conceal assets from your husband? Victoria stood carefully, one hand supporting her belly. No, Your Honor. My grandmother established that trust before I even met Marcus. When we married, I mentioned it casually, but I didn't know the details because it wasn't set to mature until my 30th birthday. I only learned the full extent 6 months ago, after discovering my husband's affair and theft. So you forgot about millions of dollars? Marcus's attorney asked skeptically. I didn't forget it existed. I forgot the specifics because Marcus handled all our finances. He insisted on it. That trust was established before our marriage and is legally protected from marital claims. Judge Harrison reviewed the trust documents. The trust clearly predates the marriage and has specific protection clauses. This is not a marital asset. Continue with the actual issues. Marcus's attorney switched tactics. Your Honor, my client seeks shared custody of his daughter. Mrs. Sterling has been preventing all contact, attempting to alienate the child from her father. Because he abandoned us, Victoria said, her voice rising. He walked out of a restaurant while I was having contractions that could have resulted in losing our baby. He chose his mistress over his wife and unborn child. How can I trust him with our daughter's safety? Mrs. Sterling, please let your attorney speak, Judge Harrison said, though not unkindly. Catherine stood. Your Honor, my client has legitimate concerns. Mr. Sterling is currently under criminal investigation for embezzling from his business. He demonstrated catastrophically poor judgment by abandoning his wife during a medical emergency. We're not opposed to supervised visitation, but we strongly oppose unsupervised custody at this time. Speaking of the investigation, Judge Harrison said, looking at Marcus's attorney. What's the status? Still ongoing, Your Honor. No charges have been filed. That's misleading, Catherine interjected. Mr. Sterling's business partners filed a civil lawsuit last week for $200,000 in embezzled funds. His former mistress, Cassandra Monroe, was arrested on fraud charges and is cooperating with prosecutors against Mr. Sterling. Marcus's face flushed red. Judge Harrison noticed. Mr. Sterling, do you have anything to say? Marcus stood slowly. Your Honor, I made mistakes in my marriage. I had an affair, and I deeply regret it. But the financial accusations are false. Cassandra manipulated me and the company finances. I'm a victim of her schemes. A victim who was sleeping with the alleged manipulator, Judge Harrison said dryly. That's convenient. I'm not denying the affair, but I never intended to steal from anyone. And despite my mistakes, I love my daughter. I want to be part of her life. You left me. Victoria couldn't stay quiet. I was possibly losing our baby, and you chose her over us. That's not love. That's abandonment. The hearing continued for hours. Marcus's attorney tried to paint Victoria as vindictive. Catherine countered with facts, documentation, and Frank Morrison's surveillance reports. Every detail of their failed marriage was examined under harsh courtroom lights. Finally, Judge Harrison called for a recess. I need time to review all evidence. We'll reconvene tomorrow at 9 a.m. for my ruling. Victoria left the courthouse exhausted but cautiously optimistic. What do you think? She asked Catherine. I think the judge saw through Marcus's victim narrative. The trust issue is settled. She can't consider it marital property. Catherine held the door for Victoria. But custody is unpredictable. Be prepared for supervised visitation orders. That night, Victoria went into labor. Elena rushed her to the hospital, and 8 hours later, Victoria held her daughter for the first time. She was perfect tiny fingers, dark hair, beautiful brown eyes. Welcome to the world, Lily, Victoria whispered, using the name she'd chosen. It meant purity and rebirth. We're going to have such an amazing life together. Elena wiped tears from her eyes. She's beautiful, Vic. Absolutely perfect. Victoria thought about Marcus, about how he'd chosen to miss this moment. He'd never get these first hours back. He'd traded them for an affair with a con artist, and now he'd pay that price forever. The next morning, still exhausted from labor, Victoria returned to court with Elena's help. Catherine had asked for a brief postponement, but Victoria refused. I'm seeing this through, Victoria said firmly. I want this finished. Judge Harrison took her seat and reviewed her notes. I've carefully considered all evidence and testimony. This is my ruling. Victoria held her breath. First, regarding assets. The trust fund is protected from marital claims and will not be divided. However, the marital home presents complications. Mr. Sterling fraudulently added his paramour to the deed. This action is criminal fraud. Full ownership will be restored to Mrs. Sterling. Marcus's attorney started to object, but Judge Harrison held up her hand. Second, regarding finances, Mr. Sterling transferred $68,000 from joint accounts without authorization. This constitutes theft. He will repay Mrs. Sterling in full. Additionally, Mrs. Sterling is awarded spousal support of $4,000 monthly for 5 years. Reflecting her career sacrifice, Victoria felt tears building but maintained composure. Third, regarding custody of the minor child, Lily Sterling, I'm awarding primary physical custody to Mrs. Sterling. Mr. Sterling will have supervised visitation rights 2 hours weekly until he demonstrates reliability and appropriate judgment. If criminal charges result from the current investigation, custody arrangements will be revisited. Marcus stood up. Your Honor, please. I'm her father. Mr. Sterling, you abandoned your wife during a medical emergency while she was pregnant. You left her with strangers to handle what could have been a life-threatening situation. Those are facts. Judge Harrison's voice was stern. You'll have opportunity to rebuild trust slowly and under supervision. Thank you. Your Honor, Catherine said. Finally, Mr. Sterling will pay Mrs. Sterling's attorney fees, currently $48,000. The divorce is granted. Outside the courthouse, Victoria felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She'd won on every point. The house, the money, custody, everything. You did it, Elena said, hugging her carefully. You actually did it. As they walked to the car, Victoria saw Marcus standing alone by his vehicle, talking angrily on his phone. He looked defeated, broken. She felt no satisfaction in his suffering, just relief that this chapter was finally closed. What happens now? Elena asked. Now I go home to my daughter and start living my life, Victoria said. The legal battle is over. Marcus's problems are his own. I'm free. That night, holding baby Lily while Elena made dinner, Victoria reflected on her journey. 6 months ago, she'd been sitting in a hospital bed, terrified and alone. Now she was an independent business owner with a thriving consultancy, financial security, and full custody of her beautiful daughter. Marcus had tried to destroy her. Instead, he'd freed her to become who she was always meant to be. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, Victoria's life had found its rhythm. Sterling Solutions had landed 8 major clients. Her downtown property was fully leased, generating steady passive income. Baby Lily was healthy and happy, growing more alert and interactive every day. Victoria sat in her home office reviewing a proposal when her phone rang. Frank Morrison. Victoria, heads up. Marcus was arrested this morning. Criminal charges for embezzlement. Trial set for next month. Prosecutors asked if you'd be willing to testify about his financial behavior during your marriage. Do I have to? You're on the witness list, but whether you're called depends on how the trial goes. Frank paused. Also, Cassandra tried to contact you. Left messages at your office. Your assistant screened them. What does she want? Probably sympathy. She's facing 8 years. Her plea deal fell through. After hanging up, Victoria tried to focus on work, but her mind kept drifting to Marcus and Cassandra. She'd successfully moved on, built a new life. But the upcoming trial would bring everything back. 2 weeks later, Victoria received a subpoena. The prosecution wanted her to speak about Marcus's character and their marriage. Catherine agreed to attend court with her for support. The courthouse was crowded with media. Cassandra's pattern of targeting wealthy men had attracted attention. Cameras waited outside, and Victoria kept her head down, entering the building down inside. She saw Marcus at the defense table looking gaunt and exhausted. Cassandra sat separately with her attorney, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than Victoria's monthly mortgage. Mrs. Sterling to the stand. The prosecutor called. Victoria was sworn in and sat down. Focusing on the prosecutor, a sharp woman named Rachel Martinez. Mrs. Sterling, please describe your marriage to Marcus Sterling. We were married for 6 years. For most of that time, I believed we had a strong partnership. Marcus handled our finances while I managed our home and prepared for our daughter's birth. When did you discover your husband's affair? Victoria described that anniversary dinner and detailed Cassandra's kiss, Marcus's non-denial, his abandonment during her medical crisis. Several jurors looked shocked. One older woman shook her head in disgust. During your marriage, did Mr. Sterling have access to your financial accounts? Complete access. He insisted on managing everything. He said I should focus on preparing to be a mother while he handled the money. And you later discovered he'd been transferring funds without your knowledge? $68,000 over 3 months. All moved to accounts controlled by him and Cassandra. I also discovered he'd taken out a second mortgage on our house without telling me $80,000 I never saw. Rachel showed Victoria bank statements. Can you identify these transactions? Yes, these are transfers from our joint account to an account in Cassandra's name. I had no knowledge of them until after Marcus abandoned me at the restaurant. Marcus's attorney objected repeatedly, but Judge Wallace allowed most of Victoria's testimony. After an hour, Victoria was excused. She told the truth simply and directly, letting the facts speak for themselves. Over the next week, other witnesses testified. Marcus's business partners, detailed how he'd created fake invoices and phantom employees. Forensic accountants traced money trails. Cassandra's previous victims described similar patterns of deception. Cassandra herself testified, trying to claim Marcus had manipulated her. But Patricia Vaughn's documentation of Cassandra's history destroyed that defense. The jury saw exactly what Cassandra was: a repeat offender who targeted wealthy men. The verdict came quickly. Guilty on all counts for both Marcus and Cassandra. Marcus received 7 years in federal prison. Cassandra received 10. Justice, Elena said when Victoria got the news. Actual justice. Victoria felt surprisingly little. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just tired relief that it was finally, completely over. A week later, Victoria received a letter from Marcus, forwarded through Catherine. It was handwritten, several pages long. Victoria, I know you have no reason to read this, let alone believe anything I say. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. Not the strategic apology I tried in court, but genuinely sorry for destroying our marriage, our family, everything we built together. Prison gives you a lot of time to think. I've been seeing a counselor, trying to understand why I made such destructive choices. I was selfish, cowardly, and stupid. I got caught up with Cassandra, and I couldn't find my way out. I'm not blaming her. I made every choice that brought me here. The affair, the theft, walking out on you at Milano's, those were my decisions. I own them. I've heard about your business success, about how you're thriving. I'm genuinely glad. You deserve so much better than what I gave you. Lily deserves better too. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that you were right about everything. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was too weak to be the man you needed. I hope someday you can at least understand that. I did love you. I just loved myself more, and that's my burden to carry. Marcus. Victoria read the letter twice, then filed it away. She neither forgave nor condemned. She simply acknowledged and moved forward. That afternoon, Victoria sat with baby Lily in the sunny nursery of her new home, a beautiful townhouse near the park where Elena lived. She'd sold the old house, wanting a fresh start without memories of Marcus and Cassandra. Your daddy made some bad choices, Victoria whispered to Lily. But you're not defined by his mistakes. You're going to know what real love looks like: honest, respectful, and strong. Life continued. Sterling Solutions expanded to 3 cities. The commercial property doubled in value. Victoria started a nonprofit helping women rebuild after financial abuse, using her own experience to guide others. One afternoon, Victoria's assistant buzzed her office. There's a Nathan Torres here to see you. He's an architect consulting on that development project downtown. Says he has a proposal. Nathan Torres turned out to be a handsome man in his late 30s with warm eyes and an easy smile. They spent an hour discussing his project, and Victoria was impressed by his vision and intelligence. Your reputation in the industry is exceptional, Nathan said as they wrapped up. I'd love to work together. Over the next months, Victoria and Nathan collaborated professionally. He was talented, ethical, and surprisingly funny. When he finally asked her to dinner, not business, just dinner, Victoria surprised herself by saying yes. Their first date was easy and comfortable. Nathan was a single father himself, sharing custody of his daughter with his ex-wife. He understood complicated schedules and new beginnings. Can I ask what happened with your marriage? Nathan asked gently over dessert. Victoria debated, then decided on honesty. My ex-husband had an affair and embezzled money. He's currently in prison. Nathan didn't look shocked or pitying. He just nodded. That must have been incredibly difficult. But you clearly didn't let it destroy you. I couldn't. I had a daughter depending on me. Victoria appreciated that he didn't press for details. It taught me I'm stronger than I thought, and that I don't need someone else to define my worth. That's powerful. Nathan reached across the table, For what it's worth, I think you're remarkable." They continued seeing each other, taking things slowly. Nathan met Lily during a casual lunch, and they hit it off immediately. Victoria met Nathan's ex-wife, who was gracious and kind. "This is what healthy looks like," Victoria told Elena one evening. "No drama, no secrets, just two people being honest and building something real." "You deserve this," Elena said. "After everything you've been through, you deserve happiness." Marcus remained in prison, but Victoria arranged supervised visits so Lily could know her father eventually. Not for Marcus's sake, but for Lily's. Every child deserved the opportunity to have both parents if those parents could be healthy and present. Victoria's business continued thriving. She spoke at conferences, was featured in magazines, and even started writing a book about rebuilding after betrayal. The nonprofit helped hundreds of women find financial independence. One evening, as Victoria stood in her office looking out at the city lights, Nathan came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How different my life is from 3 years ago." That night at Milano's felt like the end of everything. But it was actually the beginning. "The beginning of what?" "Of me," Victoria said simply. "The real me, not the version I thought I had to be for Marcus. I'm stronger now, more authentic, more whole." Nathan kissed her temple. "I'm grateful to whoever you've become." "She's pretty amazing." Victoria turned in his arms and smiled. "So are you." 4 years after that devastating anniversary dinner, Victoria stood in her beautiful home office, reviewing proposals for Sterling Solutions' international expansion. The company now had branches in 7 cities with 50 employees. A commercial property portfolio had grown to 3 buildings. The nonprofit had helped over 800 women rebuild their lives. Lily was 4 years old, now bright, curious, and full of joy. She had supervised visits with Marcus, who'd been released on parole after serving 4 years. Those visits were cordial but distant. Marcus had remarried quietly, working as a consultant for a small firm. Keeping a low profile, Victoria had also moved forward. She and Nathan had married 2 years ago in a simple garden ceremony with their daughters as flower girls. They blended their families beautifully. Lily and Nathan's daughter Madison were inseparable. They'd even had a son together last year, a happy surprise they'd named James. The doorbell rang, pulling Victoria from her thoughts. She opened it to find Patricia Vaughn holding a bottle of wine. "Celebrating," Patricia announced, coming inside. Cassandra was denied parole again. She served at least 3 more years. "I'm glad she's facing consequences," Victoria said, pouring wine for them both. "But honestly, I barely think about her anymore. She's just a chapter in my past. That's growth." Patricia raised her glass. "Remember when you were in that hospital bed, terrified and alone? Look at you now." Victoria looked around her home, tastefully decorated, filled with family photos, warm and inviting. "I barely recognized that woman. She felt so powerless." She wasn't powerless. She just didn't know her own strength yet. Patricia smiled. "You built an empire from ashes, Victoria. That's not common." Later that evening, after Patricia left and the kids were asleep, Victoria and Nathan sat on their back porch watching the sunset. "I've been thinking about the book tour," Victoria said. Her memoir about rebuilding after betrayal had been published 6 months ago and was climbing bestseller lists. "The publishers want me to do 20 cities." 20? Nathan raised his eyebrows. "That's a lot of time away." "I know. But I keep thinking about all the messages I get from women who read it and said it saved their lives. Women who were ready to give up until they saw that someone else survived and thrived." "Then you should do it," Nathan said simply. "We'll manage." "Your story matters, Vic. You're helping people. You're sure?" "It's 2 months." "Unsure. Besides, Madison and I will FaceTime you every night." Lily will draw you pictures. We'll make it work. Nathan pulled her close. I'm proud of you, you know? Not just for the business success, but for turning your pain into purpose. Victoria thought about that phrase, pain into purpose. It perfectly captured her journey. Marcus's betrayal had shattered her life, but in rebuilding, she'd created something infinitely better than what she'd lost. I never thought I'd say this, Victoria admitted, but I'm almost grateful for what happened. Not grateful for the pain, but grateful for who I became because of it. I never would have started my business if I'd stayed in that marriage. I never would have helped all those women. I never would have met you. I'm definitely grateful for the last part, Nathan said with a smile. But you would have been amazing regardless. You just got forced to show the world earlier than expected. The next morning, Victoria received an unexpected email from Marcus. They rarely communicated directly. Everything went through lawyers and parole officers for Lily's visits. Victoria, I saw the news about your book. Congratulations on its success. I won't pretend to enjoy reading about my failures in print, but I understand why you wrote it. Your story deserves to be told, and if it helps other women, then something good came from my terrible choices. I wanted to let you know that I'll be moving to Oregon next month. My new wife's family is there, and I've been offered a position with a consulting firm. I'll continue my supervised visits with Lily, just remotely via video calls and occasional in-person visits as approved by the court. I'm not running away. I'm just trying to build a quiet life where my past doesn't define my every interaction. I hope you can understand that. I also wanted to thank you. You could have made these past 4 years much harder. You could have poisoned Lily against me or made visitation impossible. But you didn't. You kept your word about letting her know her father. That's grace I didn't earn, but deeply appreciate. I hope your book tour goes well. I hope your family continues thriving. And I hope someday Lily will understand that her father loved her, even though he was foolish enough to miss her first years. Marcus Victoria showed the email to Nathan. What do you think? Should I respond? Do you want to? Victoria considered. I think I want to acknowledge it and wish him well. Not for him, but for me. So I can fully let go of any remaining anger. She typed a brief response. Marcus, thank you for the email and congratulations on your new opportunity. I think moving forward with a fresh start is healthy for everyone. I'll continue supporting supervised visitation for Lily as long as it's in her best interest. I wish you well in Oregon. I hope you found peace with who you are and who you want to be. Victoria short, civil, and final. Exactly what closure should look like. That afternoon, Victoria drove to the nonprofit's office to meet with a new client, a woman named Jennifer, whose husband had just been arrested for financial fraud. Jennifer looked terrified, sitting in the consultation room with red eyes and shaking hands. I don't know what to do, Jennifer whispered. He handled everything. I have no idea what our finances look like. Where the money went, nothing. And I have 3 kids. Victoria sat across from her and smiled gently. I know exactly where you are. 4 years ago, I was in that same chair, feeling exactly what you're feeling. And I'm here to tell you that it gets better. Much better. How? How do I even start? One step at a time. First, we're going to get you access to all your financial accounts. Then we're going to document everything. Then we're going to connect you with an excellent attorney. And through it all, I'm going to be here to guide you because I've walked this path. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. I read your book. That's how I found this place. Your story gave me hope that maybe I could survive this. You won't just survive, Victoria said firmly. You're going to thrive. I promise you that. This feels like the end of your life, but it's actually the beginning. A painful beginning, but the start of something authentic and strong. Over the next hour, Victoria walked Jennifer through the first steps accessing accounts. contacting attorneys, documenting evidence. She shared her own story in detail, showing Jennifer that rebuilding was possible. When Jennifer left, she looked less terrified and more determined. "You're really good at this," Elena said, watching from the doorway. She'd become the nonprofit's operations director, helping Victoria run the organization. "I'm good at it because I lived it. Every fear Jennifer has, I've felt. Every question she asks, I've asked. I can help her because I know the way through. That's the whole point, isn't it?" Elena smiled, turning your worst experience into someone else's lifeline. That evening, Victoria stood in Lily's room watching her daughter sleep. Lily had Nathan's eyes and Victoria's smile. She was confident, loved, and beautifully unaware of the chaos that had surrounded her birth. "Thank you," Victoria whispered to the sleeping child. "You gave me a reason to keep fighting when I wanted to give up. You made me stronger than I ever thought I could be." Nathan appeared in the doorway. "Everything okay?" "Better than okay." Victoria joined him in the hallway. "I was just thinking about how far we've come. 4 years ago, I was sitting in a hospital bed wondering how I'd survive. Now I'm here, successful business owner, published author, happily married, mother of 2 with another on the way." "Another?" Nathan's eyes widened. Victoria grinned. "Surprise. Found out this afternoon. I was waiting for the right moment to tell you." Nathan swept her into his arms, careful of her belly. "This is amazing. Our family keeps growing in the best ways." "It does," Victoria agreed. "Because we're building it on honesty, respect, and real love. Not the fantasy love I had with Marcus, but the genuine partnership we've created." Later, alone in her office, Victoria reflected on her journey. She thought about that woman in Milano's restaurant 4 years ago, terrified, betrayed, convinced her life was over. She wanted to tell that woman what she knew now. She opened her laptop and began writing, not for her book, but for herself. A letter to her past self. "Dear Victoria, right now, you're sitting in a hospital bed, thinking your life is over. You're scared, alone, and convinced that Marcus's betrayal has destroyed everything. I'm writing from 4 years in your future to tell you something important. You're wrong. Your life isn't over. It's beginning. The real you, the strong, capable, authentic you, is about to emerge from the ashes of this disaster. Everything you're losing wasn't meant for you anyway. In 4 years, you'll have built a company worth millions. You'll own multiple properties, generating substantial passive income. You'll have written a best-selling book helping thousands of women. You'll have remarried a good man who values and respects you. You'll have 2 more children who bring endless joy. But more than any of that, you'll have yourself back. The real you, not the version you thought you had to be for Marcus. You'll be authentic, powerful, and completely comfortable in your own skin. Marcus's betrayal will stop feeling like a tragedy and start feeling like liberation. You'll actually be grateful for it, not for the pain, but for the transformation it forced you to undergo. So when you're crying in that hospital bed, when you're scared about the future, when you're wondering how you'll survive, know this: you won't just survive. You'll thrive beyond your wildest dreams. The journey ahead won't be easy. There will be legal battles, financial stress, sleepless nights, and moments of doubt. But you're stronger than you know. You have resources you've forgotten about. You have skills you've let atrophy. You have a fire inside you that's about to be rekindled. Don't waste energy hating Marcus. He's already facing consequences that will last his lifetime. Focus that energy on building your new life instead. Don't be afraid of being alone. You'll learn that alone isn't lonely. It's powerful. Don't rush into anything new. Take time to heal, to grow, to discover who you are without a relationship defining you. When love finds you again, it'll be healthier because you'll be healthier. Most importantly, don't ever doubt your worth. Marcus's betrayal says everything about his character and nothing about your value. You are enough. You always were. You just needed this crisis to remember that truth. Your daughter will be extraordinary. You'll raise her to be strong, confident, and authentic. She'll never doubt her worth because you'll model what real strength looks like. So breathe. Cry when you need to. Feel the pain fully. But then get up, dust yourself off, and start building. Because 4 years from now, you'll be sitting in your beautiful home, surrounded by family you chose and built with intention, living a life more authentic and fulfilling than anything you had before. You're about to discover that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing that ever happened to you, not because of the event itself, but because of who you choose to become afterward. Trust the process. Trust yourself. And know that everything is going to be more than okay. With love from your future self. Victoria. She saved the letter and closed her laptop, feeling peaceful. Her journey from betrayed wife to empowered woman hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every difficult step. The moral of her story wasn't about revenge or justice, though both had played their roles. It was about resilience, transformation, and the incredible strength people discover when life forces them to dig deep. Marcus's betrayal had been brutal, but Victoria's response had been extraordinary. She'd taken the worst moment of her life and transformed it into fuel for building something beautiful. That was the real victory, not the legal wins or business success, but the internal transformation. Victoria had learned that her worth wasn't tied to someone else's perception of her. She'd learned that she was capable of far more than she'd ever imagined. She'd learned that sometimes endings are actually beginnings in disguise. As she climbed into bed next to Nathan, Victoria felt genuinely grateful for her life, all of it. Even the painful parts that had taught her the most important lessons. "I love you," Nathan murmured sleepily. "I love you too." And this time, Victoria knew exactly what love was supposed to look like. Honest, respectful, supportive, and real. Not the fantasy she'd had with Marcus, but the genuine partnership she'd built with Nathan. She'd survived betrayal and emerged stronger. She'd faced financial ruin and built an empire. She'd been abandoned while pregnant and created a beautiful family. She'd been broken and put herself back together, not as she was before, but as someone even better. That was the moral Victoria wanted every reader of her book to understand. You are not defined by what happens to you. You are defined by how you respond. And sometimes the worst thing that happens becomes the catalyst for your greatest transformation. 4 years ago, Marcus had destroyed their marriage. But in doing so, he'd freed Victoria to become who she was always meant to be, a powerful, authentic, successful woman living life entirely on her own terms. And that, Victoria thought as she drifted off to sleep, was the sweetest revenge of all. Not vengeance, but living so well that the past became irrelevant. She'd won not by destroying Marcus, but by building something so beautiful that his betrayal became just a footnote in her story, the painful beginning that led to an extraordinary life. True. Strength isn't found in perfection or unbroken. Happiness, it's discovered in how we rise after devastating falls. Victoria's journey teaches us that betrayal, while agonizing, can become the catalyst for extraordinary transformation if we choose growth over bitterness. Her story reminds us that our worth is never determined by someone else's inability to see it. When life forces us to rebuild, we have the opportunity to create something more authentic and fulfilling than what we lost. The greatest victory isn't revenge. It's living so well that the past becomes irrelevant, and the person who tried to destroy us becomes just a footnote in our success story. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to us becomes the doorway to our most authentic, powerful self.